Good afternoon, everyone. As you know, yesterday Coach Tomlin and I met, and Mike informed me of his decision to step down as head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it was an emotional day for everybody in our organization yesterday. Mike's been a great leader of our franchise now for 19 years and led us with toughness, integrity, and always reflected the values of our organization. I think you all know his many accomplishments, 2 Super Bowl appearances, 1 Super Bowl victory, many AFC North titles, and many, many wins. And bottom line was, we were always in contention with Mike, and that's what counts. More than his accomplishments, Mike was a steady and respected leader, cared deeply about our players, our staff, and the whole Steeler organization. He represented the Steelers with class and dignity every single day. And on behalf of my family, everyone connected with the Steelers, I want to thank Mike and his family for being part of Steelers football for the last 19 years. We'll always be grateful. And now, obviously, we turn to our search for our next head coach. Omar and I will lead the search, and we'll rely on others in the organization to help as we go forward. So, look forward to getting started with the search and starting with the next chapter of Steelers football. So.
Open it up for questions.
Or did you get any sense over the past couple of weeks, months, that Mike was possibly leaning in this direction, and it was his decision alone?
Well, it was his decision, and I will say that I wasn't shocked, but I wasn't expecting that conversation yesterday either. There were, when you get to this stage of a career, obviously he even mentioned it himself that he was nearer to the end than the beginning, and so you could see that coming, and so as I say, I can't say that I was shocked.
Would you have been willing to give Mike the extension on his contract for 2027's March, and did he ask for that?
No, I'm not going to get into his contract at this point. I was certainly willing to take another run at it next year with Mike, and that's what I was expecting to talk about yesterday, but obviously went in a different direction.
And how long did that conversation last with Mike yesterday?
Probably 15, 20 minutes, something like that.
How long before the team meeting did he let you know that was going to be his plan?
I guess it was late morning or something like that.
Every year there's scrutiny and criticism that a coach faced, but you may have reached a different level this year with the Fire Tomlin chance. Did you get a sense of talking with him how maybe the fan reaction or negativity may have influenced his decision?
I think that I'll leave it to him to explain to you someday what all went into his decision. I think that in my mind and the discussion we had, it was probably more of a family-related decision than a football-related decision. But as I say, I don't want to speak for Mike on that.
What is the timeline of getting another coach in here? Perfect scenario for you?
I don't want to put an exact time frame on it. We'll get started right away, and it'll take weeks at least, I would say. Nowadays there are a number of protocols we have to follow that are sort of really designed to slow the process down, and so as I say, it'll probably take at least a few weeks.
You guys haven't done this very often over the years, but you've had a type. Does young up-and-coming defensive coordinator still work as a blueprint, or once you expand that?
For now, I don't want to sort of put any real parameters around it. We're going to, be an open book in terms of who we look for and the the list that we build. Yeah, could I sign up for another Chuck Noll or another Bill Cowher or another Mike Tomlin? Sure. Somebody that we feel fits that mold would be great, but for now we're not going to kind of narrow the box too much.
Can you, along those same lines, what traits, what characteristics are important to this organization when you are looking for a new head coach?
You know, I think there are a lot of things that go into being a successful head coach. Number one, really, I think in my mind is leadership and really trusting that this person can stand up in front of your team day in and day out and hold their attention and you know, have them motivated to do what they do. So, you know, that's the most important.
Can you explain exactly what's left? Can you explain what's left on Mike's contract and how that will affect things moving forward? What he decided?
I'm not going to get into the contract today. I don't think that's necessary at this point.
A lot of head coaches are, you know, looked at for being play callers, guys that are more heavily involved in the schematics. You know, I know having that leader of the room is important, but how much is maybe having that intertwined into the decision making and the search to find that next CEO of your coaches?
I mean, look, as I said, there's a lot that goes into it, a lot of qualities that you look for, and obviously somebody that has the experience of doing what we need them to do is going to be key.
When you do this as infrequently as you have, it's been a long time. What do you remember about the search for Mike? How involved were you in that process? Is there anything that you remember from that time that is fresh in your mind as you go forward into this now?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been involved in a number of searches going back to Coach Cower and obviously GM searches. And, you know, I think when you start the search, I think if I've learned anything, it's to have an open mind. You know, when we had Mike in for his first interview, certainly wasn't expecting that he was going to be our next head coach. And so you just, I think you go through the process and be diligent and, you know, hopefully you come out with the right guy.
Obviously, you were happy with the job that Mike was doing. You didn't necessarily expect that he was going to tell you he was leaving, but you also weren't surprised. With that in mind, have you had an eye or just looked around over the last couple of years of guys that could possibly be in line that you would be interested in interviewing if there was a head coach opening here?
Not really. No, I haven't spent a lot of time doing that, to be honest.
We won't talk about the contract itself, but obviously he's still under contract. There could be compensation or trade. Is that something that, did he indicate he might want to coach again, and would you be interested in something like that?
You know, Mike indicated that he did not anticipate coaching, at least, you know, in the near future. I think he wants to spend time with his family and do some of the kinds of things he hasn't been able to do for the last, you know, many years. And so, you know, if something like that comes up, we'll deal with it when it comes up. But right now, that doesn't seem to be on his radar.
All right. Could you kind of take us on maybe a day-to-day level with Mike, personal, like, what are you going to miss most about the everyday interaction with him and just moving forward, not knowing that Mike T not in the facility?
I mean, Mike was great to work with day in and day out. Just an incredible presence in the building. You know, someone that you walk into a meeting and, you know, discuss what needs to be done, and that's the plan. So no backtracking on things, no sort of hidden agendas, anything like that. Great to work with.
Art, would you anticipate anybody currently on Mike's staff being a candidate for his replacement, or is the idea maybe to start fresh with somebody outside the building?
You know, right now I don't think that anybody on our staff is a candidate. Maybe a candidate to stay on the staff, you know, depending on what the new head coach wants to do, but probably not as a head coach.
Art, in terms of that, with the new head coach, will you open that door for them to create a staff, or do you want a hand in that?
No, that's, you know, a big part of, you know, the search for a new head coach is really understanding their ideas about the staff and who they would want to hire. So yeah, that's an important part of the discussion.
The new coach, Art, I mean, will he have as much say in player personnel as Mike did, or will the dynamics and chain of command kind of shift a little bit with how long Omar's been in his role?
Yeah, I don't think I anticipate really changing our structure or chain of command. I expect the new head coach, like Bill Cowher, like Mike Tomlin, like Chuck Noll, will be very involved in preparing for the draft and working closely with Omar and his staff and making sure we're ready.
All right, I know you said you don't have a timeline, but is there a date that you kind of need a head coach by, maybe like the combine or something like that?
I mean, if you have to put an outside date on it, certainly the combine would be nice to have one before then, yes.
Mike was close with a lot of the veteran players. Do you foresee this maybe leading to a roster reset where you will get younger because of this? What happened?
Yeah, I think it's too early to say what effect it's going to have on the roster. That, you know, the new coach obviously is going to have a lot to say in that, and so you know, we'll have that discussion when the time comes.
Following up on that, you guys have had a type of 3-4 defense, and then you guys have developed players around that identity. How much is that involved in your search? Is that something that you guys are prioritizing finding the coach, and then we'll figure out adjusting the roster after the fact?
Well, I think part of the discussion with candidates will be our roster and how they view our roster, what they would do with our roster, and making sure we're all comfortable with that plan.
Mike had, he listed Mike's numerous accomplishments, the Super Bowls. He also had the streak of not having a win in the playoffs the last 9 years. How do you kind of characterize the Mike Tomlin era of the Pittsburgh Steelers?
You know, it's been a winning era. As I said before, always in contention. So I think when you start with that, you have the opportunity to take the next step. You know, I can't explain kind of the more recent history there. It's hard to explain given the overall track record. Frustrating for all of us, mostly for Mike. And but all in all, you know, I'll take being in contention every year and having a shot at it.
Do you get a sense that the recent history, that lack of playoff success, was something that had been weighing on Mike and factored into his decision?
You know, I can't say. Again, I'd leave it to Mike to kind of talk about what factored into his decision. I've already said, to me, it was more a family decision than a football decision. So I'll leave it at that.
You mentioned a couple times about saying it every year had a chance. There's a school of thought. A lot of people say, tear it down, build it back up. There's been, or get a high draft pick. That seems to be a big talking point amongst media and fans and everything. Do you disagree with that philosophy? Do you rather be every year right there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure why you waste a year of your life not trying to contend. Obviously, your roster is what it is every year. It changes every year, and so you deal with, you know, what you have every year and try to you know, put yourself in position to compete every year. And sometimes you have the horses, sometimes you don't, but I think you try every year.
As a team president, as the head of the organization, where you have your most valued employee telling you that he just wants to resign, do you try to talk him out of it?
I did not. I mean, you know, he was pretty clear about what his intentions were, and so I think, you know, we had a great conversation, and I understood where he was.
I know you like Mike beyond just being a good football coach. I mean, like, when he was talking about the reasons for it, you said you weren't shocked. You were surprised you had the conversation, but you weren't shocked. Why? What had you seen? What did you sense that you weren't shocked that he made this call?
I mean, just a sense. I mean, I'm not sure I can get into a lot of details with you on it, but, you know, just again, when you're going into 18, 19 years of a career like this, you know, he said it himself. He knows it's not going to go forever. So I mean, I think we all knew that we were getting toward the end.
All right, I know the standard is the standard has been a motto around here from Tomlin for a long time. What are you going to express to the new coach of what the standard is here in Pittsburgh?
Standard is try to compete to win a championship every year.
That being said, you know, it's an unusual position. Usually teams that are looking for coaches are looking for coaches because it hasn't gone well. This is sort of not that case. Is the expectation of whoever comes in that you guys should expect to be in contention right away?
Like I said, you know, I'm not going to say, well, you know, we're going to take a couple years to figure this out, and then we'll try to compete. So I think you try every year. I mean, you know, and as I said, some years you have the horses to really get there, some years you don't, but you try every year, in my view.
Or do you think this impacts Aaron Rodgers at all?
Yeah, I mean, look, Aaron came here to play for Mike, so I think it will most likely affect his decision.
You mentioned horses. How important is it, you know, to find, you look at the quarterbacks left in the playoffs, I mean, 7 of the 8 are first-round guys. How important is that still on the priority list, regardless of who the coach is when you get to free agency in the draft?
You know, I'm sure the quarterback position will be an important part of this discussion with the candidates, and you know, we'll have to develop a plan for going forward.
So 2 more.
Art, you said leadership was #1 quality you look for in a head coach. How about like innovation? How important is it for this coach to be innovative, not just in X's and O's, but also how you guys scout, how you guys prepare for every course?
You know, I think every coach I'm sure we talk to will have a little different idea of his approach, and it'll be interesting to hear from people about that. And you always learn something, you know, during this interview process. So it'll, like I said, it'll be interesting to hear maybe different perspectives on how to approach it.
Last one here.
With this change, do you expect this to be a total rebuild?
You know, I don't know if it's a rebuild. I mean, it's a new coach, so there will be changes, and you know, we'll have to all get comfortable with kind of the plan. So, you know, whether you call it a rebuild or not, I don't like that word that much. You know, we'll try to compete day one if we can.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.